Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing the second round of the simulation of the NBA from 2020 to 2101, precisely 2101 preseason. So we're going to simulate all bunch of seasons with a Basketball GM, which is a free website that I highly encourage you to use. It's completely free. It's got databases of real players, historical players, future players up to a certain point, or you can even create your own league with players of your choice. You can choose to be the GM of your franchise, or you can put it on autopilot, meaning that you choose a franchise and just you put in the start simulation and the end of the simulation date, and then it just autopilots it all the way. And you can see players, reach their full potential and so on. I encourage you to check it out. So for today's video, we're doing the second round of a previously simulated NBA season type. So in the previous video, we simulated the NBA with one team. Today, we're simulating it with another team. That shouldn't make that much of a difference, but it's interesting to see what happened and what players end up reaching their full potential and if there is a new GOAT. So for today, we're simulating with the Brooklyn Bagels, which are the equivalents of the Brooklyn Nets. However, the players are the exact same starting off. As you can see here, we're in the 2101 preseason, and all the teams here look to be the same as they are today, so no major franchise changes and no major acquisitions. So let's get into the specific records, so which players won the most and stuff, and then we're going to look at a few players that today we may consider them on the rise, or some players like LeBron James who are still in their prime after 17 years, and some other players later on. So let's get into it. So in terms of awards in Championship 1, from the period of 2020 to 2101, including the championships of players that were active in 2020 and had won previous championships, but not including players that were not active and had won championships. The people that have won the most championships are Robert Waiters, who won 7 championships in Sacramento, Philly, Los Angeles, and Portland. He won 7 of them. He retired possibly around the year 2050, and he also made the Hall of Fame. So let's take a look at his career, since he is a relatively unknown player, especially right now. Like, of course, he won his first championship in 2037, so he's probably not even born today, of course, so he's a randomly generated player. Let's see. He was born in 2009, and he died in 2084. He was the 12th pick of the first draft by Milwaukee. His career was pretty long. He played from 2037 to 2029. That's the way it's sorted, to 2050. He averaged 17.9 points, 12 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. So really, really good, especially the rebounds. As we can see here, he probably led the league in rebounding a bunch of times, averaging upwards of 16 rebounds. His points per game were pretty good, not as good as his rebounds, but still pretty good scorer. Let's see his accolades. He was a 7-time champion, a 3-time Finals MVP, a 4-time rebounding leader, a 7-time first-team All-NBA member, and a 14-time All-Star. So really, really good. No individual awards except for a few All-NBA teams, but he still was able to make the Hall of Fame and get paid a significant amount of money. So really good, really, really good career, especially for the 12th pick of a draft. Next we have Nikita Mikhailovsky, who retired but did not make the Hall of Fame. So let's check out his career just to see. He won 6 championships. Of course, as I said again, this is not including like Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, or Robert Horry, who all were retired by then, and this specific simulation does not take into account them. However, for players like LeBron James, his 3 championships will be taken into account, and any possible more championships that he won later on. So Nikita Mikhailovsky, he won 6 championships. However, his career averages were not that great. He averaged less than 10 points, 2.6 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. He only had these team awards of 6 championships, and they were all within a 9-year time frame. So he must have gotten really, really good teams, especially in Dallas, where he played most of his career, and then later in NOLA. He ended up averaging a solid 14.7 points, 4 assists, and 3.7 rebounds. So probably a lower tier all-star, he was never selected to an All-Star team, but a solid role player. It looks like he was never that badly injured except in 2025, so that's pretty good. Let's see if we see any major names. We see Luke Jarka, who of course he has not been born yet, so that doesn't apply. Let's see. We see Karl Anthony Towns, who won 5 NBA championships, and Jackson Hayes, who won also 5 NBA championships. So that's really good. Let's see Jackson Hayes. He right now, of course, he is just a rookie in NOLA. In this simulation, he was, of course, drafted the same way. His rookie season wasn't that exciting, but then later on, he ended up averaging a very solid 30.6 points on over 80% from the free throw line, which is really good, and 13.5 rebounds and 7.7 assists. So very good. He was a 5-time champion, a 2-time Finals MVP, a 5-time DPOY, which is really good, and he made a bunch of All-Star teams, 15. So really good career for Jackson Hayes. We see that later on he had plenty of injury issues with a torn meniscus and so on, but he was still able to play for a long time. He played up until he was 42 years old, which is impressive in Charlotte. He averaged only 2.8 points, but still really good. I'd be really happy for him if his career turns out to be like this. And then let's take a look at Karl Anthony Towns. We're going to look at Luka Doncic in a moment. Karl Anthony Towns ended up averaging 21.4 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 2.6 assists, which I completely see him averaging similar numbers in real life for his career. He was a 5-time NBA champion, and a Rookie of the Year, and a 2-league rebounding leader, and a 9-time All-Star. Aside from maybe the 5 championships, I can totally see his career being something similar to this. I can totally see him blossoming into something like this. Of course, he's not a first-team All-NBA member in 2020, as he was in this simulation, but I could see him being a top 5 center for at least 5, 6, 7 years or more. All right, next we're going to have Finals MVP, and we have Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic in Dallas actually won 5 Finals MVP and 5 championships. He retired in later on, of course, but he obviously made the Hall of Fame. So let's take a look at his career. Wow, okay. For his career, Luka averaged 35.5 points, 12.94 rebounds, and 9.7 assists. This is completely nuts. In his best scoring season, he averaged 44 points, 11.7 assists, and 14.7 rebounds on 90% from the free-throw line, 40% for a 50-40-90 season with a 44 point per game average and a triple-double. That's likely one of the best seasons in his NBA career. And that happened in 2020 at the age of 30 years old, which is incredibly impressive. His free throw has always been really good. His 3-point percentage, excellent for most of the time. So that is really impressive. If we take a look at his accolades, he was an 11-time MVP. That's going to come up later on. A 5-time NBA champion, a 5-time Finals MVP, the Rookie of the Year, a 13-time scoring champion, a 6-time league rebound leader, a 2-time league assist leader, a 16-time first-team All-NBA member, and a 21-time All-Star, straight from 2020 to 2040, which is impressive. He also made a good amount of money. It looks like injuries were nagging him here and there, but nothing too crazy until maybe later on. And he ended up playing most of his career in Dallas. Later on left for Memphis, but still really good. I'm interested to see in his last season. He, at the age of 41, he was still averaging 22 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 7.6 assists, which completely nuts. So that's good for him. Let's keep him right here as he might be in the GOAT conversation. Then we have Luke Jarka, who won in New York City 4 Finals MVP from 2062 to 2065. Let's see. Of course, he hasn't been born yet, of course, so it's hard to say who is going to be. He averaged 16.4 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 3.9 assists, which are all really good. He is a Hall of Famer, and he was a 6-time champion, a 4-time Finals MVP, and even a first-time All-NBA member, and a 7-time All-Star. So completely in line with the Hall of Fame accolade. Really, really good career. Of course, nothing close to Luka Doncic, but still really, really good. And then, let's look at an outlier here. Brandon Witherspoon, who is relatively new, of course, but has not retired yet, and has won 3 NBA championships, and has not made the Hall of Fame, of course. Let's go a little bit down, and we find Andrew Iguodala, who won Finals MVP, of course, in 2015 with the Warriors, but did not make the Hall of Fame. Then there is a big discussion as of right now whether players who won Finals MVP should be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. And I personally don't think that Iggy is a Hall of Famer, but feel free to argue in the comment section if you think otherwise. Let's go to most valuable player, and Luka Doncic blows everyone out of the water. We have 11 MVPs. We've already taken a look at his career right here, so that's 11 MVPs. Michael Bryant won 7 MVPs, and of course he's a Hall of Famer. And the only active player who has won more than MVPs than 4 is Javon Randall, who is still active and has not, of course, made the Hall of Fame yet. Curtis Vincent also made 3 MVPs, but no Hall of Fame yet because he's not retired. And we see here other MVP, of course, LeBron James. Those were all won before the simulation started. And Steph Curry, again, those were all won before the simulation started. We're going to take a look at LeBron James towards the end of this video. Let's take a look at Michael Bryant. Michael Bryant was born in 2059. He was drafted in 2078, the 7th pick by the Atlanta Hawks. He ended up averaging a solid 20.6 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 4.8 assists, which is really good. In some of his best season, he averaged even 30 points with 9.1 rebounds and 12.5 rebounds and 8.1 assists. So really, really good. His 3-point percentage is mediocre, but his 2-point percentage is really good, and his free throw is really good. So it's safe to say that he was probably a big man in the NBA. He was a 7-time MVP straight from 2082 to 2088, a 4-time champion, a 3-time Finals MVP, a 2-time DPOY, and a 6th Man of the Year towards the end of his career. He was a 15-time All-Star and a 4-time All-Star MVP, and he got his money worth. So that's really good for him. That's a really solid NBA career. We're going to keep him up here just for the sake of this. Now let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. We have Dustin Franklin, who won 6 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And then Jackson Hayes, who we already saw him earlier, who won 5 DPOIs. Zion Williamson, who we're going to take a look later, won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. So let's take a look at just Dustin Franklin, since we have not taken a look at him yet. He was born in 2026, the 11th pick of the 2nd round. Wow. So really, really good career for a 2nd rounder. Of course, he started off pretty slow with 1.6 points, but then blossomed later on. And he averaged 17 points and 10.8 rebounds and 2.9 assists. So really good for a 2nd rounder. He was a 6-time DPOY, a 2-time rebounding leader, a 3-time first-team All-NBA member, and a 12-time All-Star. I mean, it's safe to say that this is probably the best 2nd round pick of all time, unless something else comes up in the simulation. But in real life, this would definitely be among the best 2nd round picks of all time. We'll see how Nikola Jokic's career turns out to be in real life, but this is really, really good. So yeah, this is the POY. Let's take a look at All-Star appearances. And Luka Doncic blows everyone out of the water, of course, with 21, which is the most. LeBron James is close to 20. We can see here that he actually ended up signing in New York towards the end of his career, and he retired later on, and he, of course, made the Hall of Fame. I'm interested to see Jake Leonard, who we're going to take a look at in a moment. Let's see if there are any active players. It doesn't look like there are any active players. Carmelo Anthony did not make the Hall of Fame. I'm really interested to see why this is the case. And let's see. Javon Randall looks like is the only other active player. Anyway, let's take a look at Jake Leonard, who made 20 All-Star appearances, if I'm not mistaken. He ended up averaging 19 points, 8.8 assists, and rebounds, and 7.5 assists. He was a 2-time MVP, a 13-time First League All-Team team member, and a 20-time All-Star, and a 2-time All-Star MVP. So very, very solid career. He played well into his 40s. Oh, okay, he played till he was 46. Wow, that is impressive. At 46, he ended up averaging like really, really good points. Let me see. 11.9 points. This is really good for a 46-year-old. And it's safe to say that if he hadn't played that much into his career, his career averages would have probably looked a little better. But still, kudos to his longevity. Next, we're going to take a look at Carmelo Anthony, who was not selected for the Hall of Fame despite making 10 All-Star seasons. And we can see here that he only played 3 more seasons after 2020, or including 2020. He played in Portland, all of them. And of course, his career averages are relatively putrid, but this is just considering these 3 seasons. So overall, he was a scoring leader, scoring champion, a 2-time second-team All-League, and a 4-time third-team All-League, and a 10-time All-Star. So if you ask me, those are definitely Hall of Fame credentials. So I'm not really sure why he did not make the Hall of Fame in this simulation. Maybe there was something up with the fact that he only played 3 seasons, but maybe they didn't count for his previous accomplishments. But still, this is totally robbery. Next, we're gonna take a look at team records. So overall, the teams that have performed the best in this span. The team that made the most finals were the Dallas Snipers with 12 finals. Of course, Luka Doncic was probably a really good fuel to that team. And they also had the fifth best record. The best record seems to be by the Miami Cyclones. And the most finals appearances, again, Dallas, but the most titles, Dallas again. Here's a surprise. Charlotte actually becomes really good later on, and they have one of the better records, and they even win 7 titles. The most MVPs are won by Dallas, who, of course, has Luka Doncic. The most DPOIs by the Atlanta Hawks or Gold Club, and the most Rookie of the Year to the Toronto Beavers, who, as in real life, have a really, really good developing cast. So let's take a look at some players that right now are at the peak of their game or towards the tail end of their career, but we know they're gonna be, Hall of Famers. So let's take a look at, for example, James Harden. We have James Harden, who is today by far the top shooting guard in the game. So for this part of the simulation, he ended up having a pretty sharp decline. He ended up averaging multiple seasons with multiple 20 plus points seasons up until he was 36. He was actually traded to Phoenix. He was traded to Phoenix later on. And he ended up averaging 25 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 7.1 assists. However, the final 2 seasons, he only averaged 2.7 and 2.1 points. So it's safe to say that without those, his averages would have looked a lot better. Overall, he ended up winning MVP also in 2020. He was a 6-time Sixth Man of the Year in 2012, as we know already. And then later on, it looks like he made First Team All-League in 2020. He made Second Team All-League in 2021, and then made the All-Star team in 2023. But after that, he really didn't make much. Not many major injuries aside from a sprained calf in his last season, so he likely just slowed down. Of course, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. But, his career, we would hope for a little more longevity from him, but still, his numbers are really, really good. And his 3-point percentage seems to be really good, especially later on. Let me see, in 2020 and 2021, he shot 40% from the field on over 11 attempts, which is really, really good. And he kept it pretty consistent, aside from the final year of his career, of course. So next, we're going to look at LeBron James Sr. Spoiler alert, there's going to be LeBron James Sr., the junior later on. LeBron James played his 3 years in LA, then in New York City, then Washington, then back to New York City probably halfway through the season, and then Washington. So wow, okay. He ended up having a rough decline towards the end, but nothing too crazy. 22.5 points, 9.6 assists, and 6.8 rebounds, so really, really good. His highest scoring season was actually in 2021, so next year, with 29.5 points, 8.4 rebounds, and 9.8 assists, which are excellent numbers. In terms of his awards, he won the championship in 2020. He did not win the Finals MVP in 2020, so that is surprising. He was the league assist leader in 2023 and 2024. Of course, the 2020 simulation here was brand new, so he would be the 2020 league assist leader in real life, but not in this. He ended up making the third team all league in 2022 and the second team all league in 2020 and the first team all league in 2021. He made the first team all defensive earlier on in his career. He was an all-star up until 2024, so 20 time, and nothing else. Of course, a Hall of Famer, and in real life, arguably the second best player of all time. It looks like in 2023 he had a fractured foot that sidelined him for 23 games, and in 2026 he had a sprained knee. So not as much of an Iron Man as in real life, but still a really, really good career. And I can totally see his career ended up something like this. I would hope that maybe he would average more points. Of course, when you're 42, you're not going to average that many points, but, he's LeBron James, so he's likely going to do that. Next, we're going to look at, it only seems fitting, his son, LeBron James Jr., who was drafted as the 11th pick of the 2023 draft by the New York City Knicks. He ended up, his career did not turn out too good. He only averaged 9.7 points and 4.2 assists and 1.3 rebounds, so nothing spectacular. I mean, these are solid numbers, and in his best season, he averaged upwards of 16 points and 7.6 assists. So he was likely a solid point guard, kind of like Ricky Rubio, maybe less than that. He doesn't have any accolades aside from team accolades of championships, so he's not in the Hall of Fame, of course. And it looks like he struggled with injuries later on, so his career was nothing as successful as his father, but still relatively decent. There's also other siblings of him that played in the NBA. Caden James, who only played 3 seasons and didn't, of course, get any awards, and Marco James, who played 2 seasons, and of course did not win any awards, so not nearly as successful as their father. We're going to take a look at Kawhi Leonard now, who in his career, he ended up playing the rest of his career in LA up until he was 36, and I can definitely see his career averaging something like this. He averaged 21 points, almost 22, 6.1 rebounds, and 4 assists, and nothing too crazy of a decline, so that's really good for him. His career 3-point percentage dropped a little bit, especially later on, but nothing too worrisome. He was, he didn't have that many accolades later on. He made one more All-Star team, and he was inducted into Hall of Fame, mainly because of his career MVP, Finals MVPs. He looks like he fractured an ankle in 2021, and he had repetitive surgery and stuff to fix that ankle. His career was relatively successful. People would hope, of course, that he would win more championships. But, as of right now, he would be a Hall of Fame if he retired right now. So, I can see why he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Then we have arguably the best player in the NBA right now by many, Giannis. Giannis played in Milwaukee until 2021. Then he was actually signed by San Antonio, where he played the rest of his career. Very, very good rest of his career. He averaged over 28 points, 11.7 rebounds, and 5.2 assists. In his peak season in 2022, he averaged almost 36 points, 11 rebounds, on 62% from 2, and 33% from 3. So not too bad. Of course, this doesn't count the 50% because he only had very few attempts. But still, he looks like his 3-point shot slightly improved. He won MVP in 2019, of course, in 2021 instead of 2020. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame. He was the 6th man of the year in his second to last season. He was a scoring leader in 2022. He was a 5-time first-team All-NBA and a 14-time All-Star. So I would argue that I would hope for Giannis, of course, that he wins championships. This can be a realistic, bad scenario for him, or not bad, because that's of course a Hall of Fame career, but most people expect him to win multiple MVPs and multiple championships. So this of course is a decorated career, but people would expect probably more from him. Then we're going to look at Zion Williamson, who now by many is considered one of the most rising prospects in the NBA. Wow, okay, he played all his career in NOLA, And up until he was 40, he averaged 28 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 4.9 assists. So excellent numbers. In his peak seasons, this is adjusted by points, he averaged over 37 points, 8.7, 11.18 rebounds, and 5.7 assists. So amazing numbers. On his field goal percentage isn't that great, but mostly because he took a lot of three-pointers, almost 12 on 37%, which is excellent. So it'd be interested to see his true shooting percentage and such. Let's see. He ended up being a 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time champion, a 4-time DPOY, the most improved player in 2024, a 6-time league steals leader, a 9-time first-team All-NBA, and a 15-time All-Star. So likely people would maybe expect him to win more MVPs, but this is a very, very good realistic case for his career. I can totally see him getting DPOY if he gets some more defensive instincts, but this is a really, really good career, and he ended up getting a lot of money. So it looks like injuries didn't bother him too much. At the tail end of his career, he had a torn meniscus, but that likely slowed him down a little, but nothing too bad. And then we're looking at Ja Morant, who averaged 28 points, 9.4 assists, and 7.2 rebounds, which is excellent. In his peak season, he ended up averaging 41 points and 10.7 assists and 8.6 rebounds on 89% from the free throw line, 45% and 35% from 3 on over 13 attempts, which is pretty good if you ask me. He was, for his career, a MVP in 2023, a 2-time champion, a Finals MVP, a 6th Man of the Year at the tail end of his career, and a 3-time league assist leader, and overall a very good player at 14 All-Star appearances. So if you ask me, that's probably one of the best case scenario for Ja. I love his play style, and I definitely see him being a champion and an MVP. Nothing close to a GOAT conversation, but definitely a top 10 point guard of all time with these stats. Then we're going to look at Lonzo Ball and LaMelo Ball, which have been hyped by their fathers, of course. But as you remember in the past simulation, they didn't do that much, and it doesn't look like Lonzo Ball did a lot in this simulation either. He played with Nola, of course, and Chicago. He only averaged 8.4 points and 7.1 assists and 5.3 rebounds. His assists were pretty good. I mean, 10.1 assists to 1.9 turnovers, that is an excellent ratio, and especially 2.4 steals. So it looks like he developed into a very well-rounded playmaker, nothing too crazy of a scorer. And he was an all-star once in his career in 2022, which was the season that I just talked about. So, I mean, he got an all-star appearance, which is more than he did in the past simulation, but still nothing, as much as his father would like him to see. And then LaMelo, he averaged, he was drafted by Nola, so likely with his brother, but he only averaged 0.8 points in his rookie season and 2 points for his career, never breaking the 5-point barrier. And he won a championship, but likely was only like a bench warmer in 2023. So he did at least win a championship, but nothing too crazy. And he was selected with the 20th pick, which is much lower than his current projected selection in the lottery. Then we're going to look at the last player who, if you remember, in the last simulation, he ended up being one of the best players of all time, if not the best, spoiler alert, Imani Bates. Imani Bates was selected as the second pick of the 2022 draft. And let's see, for his career, nothing extraordinary, but still really good. He averaged 20.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 2.6 assists. In his prime seasons, he would average around 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 3.6 assists in Cleveland. As far as his career went, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, he won a championship and Finals MVP, he was an 11-time All-Star and an All-Star MVP. So, very good career, again, Hall of Fame worthy for sure, but nothing close to the career that he had in the past simulation. All right, I see. He also suffered in 2036 a torn meniscus, which sidelined him for a third of the season and caused him to drop a few points in terms of like his stats. So that likely slowed him down towards the end of his career. So if we just look at everything, this simulation has a clear-cut winner in terms of the GOAT conversation. We've talked about Michael Bryant and his very successful career where he was a 7-time MVP and a 4-time champion and a 3-time finals MVP and a 2-time DPOI. We talked about Jackson Hayes, who was a 5-time DPOI. However, nobody in the simulation came close to Luka Doncic, who by many now is considered one of the top 3-4 players in the NBA and at only 21 years old. To just recapitulate his stats, he was an 11-time MVP, straight from 2024 to 2034, so an entire decade and more dominated by him. He was a 5-time NBA champion and a 5-time finals MVP. And if you look at it, all these championship seasons happened during his MVP years, so that is a really good sign. He was a 13-time scoring champion, so likely the best scorer of all time, a 2-time assist leader and a 16-time All-NBA first-team member and a 21-time All-Star. So, I mean, there's very little to say about his career other than just he was phenomenal. In his peak season, he averaged 44 points, which is completely nuts on a 50-40-90 season and a triple-double, which arguably that would be the best season of all time at 31 years old. So that is scary. He played all 82 games of the season in 2030. Let me see. In 2030, he also won the championship and finals MVP. And wow, like he was also a rebounding leader that season. So that is completely crazy. Like that is amazing for him. So best season of all time and best player of all time in this conversation. Thank you so much for listening to this channel. I encourage you to use Basketball GM, and if you have any more questions or anything, or if you would like to see any specific simulations played out, please feel free to comment below the video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you.